But first, it's been an interesting week in the news, and if you're actually willing to push past the headlines, you'll find most of what we've been told is smeared in a whole pile of BS. So let's cut through some of the waffle, and I'm going to take you to the real story behind the news. First off, I'm already fed up with the posturing from the government and the opposition. Now, after years of demonising coal, the government is now demanding our coal-fired power stations stay online so that we can have a stable and reliable electricity grid. Here's the new Minister, Madeleine King.
So in the very short term, what we really need to do is to have the coal power stations come back online, because that is the missing piece in the puzzle right now.
It's astounding, isn't it? Right? While King is actually telling the partial truth, we do need coal over the short term, she actually avoids the reality that we need coal over the medium and long term too. To suggest otherwise is foolish and ignorant in my view. But that's what politics has specialised in recent years. Foolishness, ignorance, political opportunism. And both teams have embraced the pipe dream of net zero, and as a result they've damaged our economic future. But now we've got this newfound love of nuclear power by the newly minted opposition. Here's Nationals leader David Littleproud pushing the Labor government to go nuclear.
We have a coalition agreement, and Peter and I have been very clear on that. And I understand that nuclear is at the moment a step too far for many of the political parties. And we're not throwing this down people's throats. We're simply saying, let's create the environment for a constructive conversation with the community about nuclear energy and the role that it can play into the future.
Hello, David. Where have you been this last decade when you were part of the government? Why is it that our politicians on the Liberal side of politics in particular find their mojo to pursue big policies when they're actually in no position to do anything about it? I mean, the previous Liberal governments, I should say coalition governments, because David is a member of the National, or the leader of the National Party, had every opportunity to push the case for nuclear and try and have the total ban removed when the EPBC Act was actually reviewed. They failed to do so. And in that failure, they scribbed a fight over the future of energy supply in this country that could have turned the tide in their favour, because they ruled out the only zero emissions baseload power that is available. From my perspective, it was cowardly and hopelessly myopic. Even members of the Greens party in Finland are on board the nuclear power push, because according to them, humanity no longer has the luxury of opposing nuclear power. Oh, only Australia does, with the Labor Party and the Coalition and the Greens. And the Australian Labor Party, of course, they're too scared witless by reality. The Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, he's ruled out nuclear power because apparently the economics don't stack up, while he lauds the compelling economics behind renewables. Have a look at this.
The reason that I'm not keen on nuclear energy for Australia is because the economics don't stack up. I don't think that they have actually ever stacked up in Australia, but particularly the case. Some of these cleaner and cheaper opportunities the economics have become so compelling.
What a load of old cobblers. You don't support nuclear energy because you're ideologically opposed to it. It's got nothing to do with economics. Allowing nuclear into the mix does not mean that a plant is going to be built today or in 10 years. It just means it's a potential option. If the economics stack up, that is. If they don't, no one's going to build one, Treasurer. So, show some fortitude that the Liberals and the Coalition clearly didn't, and remove the ban from the EPBC Act. And as to the economics of cleaner and cheaper renewable power opportunities, pull the other one. The more supposed free energy we create from sun and wind, the more expensive and unreliable our power becomes. It's not rocket science to link the two. And it'd be even worse if the billions in subsidies from taxpayers were removed from these renewable projects. And you see, that's why new renewable projects do not happen unless they get taxpayer money. You see, the economics simply isn't there. And then governments toss billions into pipe dreams like green hydrogen. Yes, it's another unproven green dream that doesn't stack up economically either. It requires other people's money to even make it potentially in the realm of competitive. So tell us again, Treasurer, that you're not ideologically opposed to nuclear energy, but are only focused on the economics. Because if you tell us again and again and again, maybe someone, somewhere, might even believe you. But there are those out there that say the current electricity crisis is caused by gas restrictions. Well, that's partially true. You see, governments across the country have made it difficult to exploit gas resources. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have plenty of gas, just that governments have made a total mess of protecting us. In Victoria, Dan Andrews put a ban on gas fracking in the state's constitution. Apparently, this was a result of demands by farmers and regional communities, the very people who will be complaining a lot about the cost of electricity. Former New South Wales Liberal Premier Mike Baird, well, he cancelled the gas exploration licence covering much of the Sydney Basin in 2015. And not to be outdone, South Australia's marshmallow government, they were turfed out at the last election, banned gas fracking in key parts of South Australia simply due to political pressure. What about the Northern Territory government? Well, sorry, I should say, that's the broke, mendicant Northern Territory. It refuses to exploit huge gas reserves using all manner of excuses why they can't, including, could be racist, you see. You see the pattern here? Politicians right across the country are actually the source of our current problems. They do not care about the damage they do as long as there is a temporary political advantage in every decision they make. Left or right, blue, red or green or teal, they've all done this country a major disservice.